Captain Zixtar's 3 hearts hammered against her chitinous chest as another explosion rocked the research vessel, Gentle Current. The emergency lights cast sickly purple shadows across the bridge, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the recycled air. Her crew of 12 Velnari scientists huddled at their stations, their normally pristine blue-scaled skin now dulled with fear and exhaustion. "Status report," she commanded, though her voice cracked with the weight of their dire situation. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, reported Communications Officer Thais, her webbed fingers trembling as they danced across her console. "Life support failing in sections 2 and 5. The Cascade reactor is showing critical instability readings." Zixtar closed her large, compound eyes and tried to center herself. 3 days ago, they had been conducting routine atmospheric studies of the gas giant Zerion 7. Then the pirates had appeared, a brutal pack of Krillian raiders known for their complete disregard for galactic law. The Gentle Current was a research vessel, equipped with sensors and laboratories, not weapons. They had tried to run, but the pirates were faster, hungrier, and far more experienced at this deadly game. "Any word from Galactic Patrol?" Zixtar asked, though she already knew the answer. Thais shook her head, her gill slits fluttering with stress. "The nearest patrol ship is 18 standard days away. Even if they left immediately after receiving our distress beacon, we'll be—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Dead. They would all be dead. The pirates had been methodical in their torture, demanding access to the ship's scientific databases and research samples. When the Velnari had refused, the Krillians had begun their systematic destruction of the ship. They seemed to take pleasure in the slow process, like predators playing with wounded prey. Another impact shook the vessel, and sparks showered from an overhead conduit. Engineer Korth yelped and dove away from his station as superheated metal fragments scattered across the deck. "Captain," he wheezed, pulling himself upright, "the structural integrity field is at 12%. One more direct hit to the main hull, and we're going to lose atmospheric containment." Zixtar felt the familiar tightness in her thorax that came with pure terror. The Velnari were an ancient, peaceful species. They had achieved interstellar flight through patience, cooperation, and scientific inquiry. Violence was almost unknown in their culture, and they were utterly unprepared for this kind of brutality. "Transmission coming through," Thys announced suddenly, her voice rising with a mixture of hope and confusion. It's not Galactic Patrol." "Pirates?" Zixtar asked. "No, Captain. It's coming from outside our sensor range, but the signal is strong. Very strong. And the language—" Thys paused, manipulating her controls. "The universal translator is having difficulty. It's unlike anything in our databases." "Put it through," Zixtar ordered. Static filled the bridge, followed by a voice that was somehow both alien and strangely familiar. The words were harsh, guttural, but there was an odd music to them. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation Navy, commanding the heavy cruiser Indomitable. We have received your distress signal. What is your status?" Zixtar stared at Thys, who shrugged her confusion. "Terran," she whispered. "I've never heard of such a species." "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Zixtar of the Velnari research ship Gentle Current," she responded. "We are under attack by Krillian pirates. Our vessel is severely damaged and we have multiple casualties. We would be grateful for any assistance you could provide." There was a brief pause. Then the voice returned, and this time there was something in the tone that made Zixtar's spine tingle. "Captain Zixtar, we have your position locked. Maintain course and prepare for extraction. Be advised. We are moving to engage hostile vessels in your vicinity." "Wait," Zixtar called out, sudden panic flooding her system. "Unknown ship, you don't understand. There are 6 Krillian heavy raiders. They're armed with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. You should contact Galactic Patrol and—" "Negative, Captain," the voice interrupted. and now there was something that sounded almost like amusement. We appreciate the warning, but this is well within our operational parameters. Recommend you secure your crew for potential combat maneuvers. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Operational parameters? Engineer Korth whispered. 6 Krillian raiders is within their operational parameters? Before anyone could respond, Theus gasped at her sensor display. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. Multiple contacts moving at... That's impossible. What is it? Zixtar demanded. The lead contact is traveling at 0.75 light speed in normal space. Captain, that should be impossible without tearing the ship apart. Zixtar moved to look at the display herself, and what she saw made her blood chill. The sensor readings showed a formation of 12 vessels approaching their position. The lead ship was massive, nearly 3 times the size of a Krillian heavy raider. But the others were smaller, sleeker, moving in perfect coordination like a school of predatory fish. They're broadcasting identification, Theis reported, her voice filled with wonder. Terran Federation Navy, ships designated Indomitable, Thunderchild, Relentless, Devastator. She paused, looking up at Zixtar. Captain, these ship names, they all suggest violence, warfare. A new voice crackled over the communications system, different from Admiral Chen, but equally filled with confidence. Krillian vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez of the TFN Thunderchild. You are engaged in piracy against a civilian vessel. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Through the main viewer, they could see the Krillian ships, hulking, scarred vessels designed to intimidate as much as destroy. The lead raider's response was exactly what Zixtar expected. Unknown ships, you are interfering with legitimate salvage operations. Withdraw or be destroyed. There was a moment of silence. Then Admiral Chen's voice returned. Captain Zixtar, recommend you close your observation shutters and secure your crew. Things are about to get interesting. What are they going to do? Zixtar whispered. She got her answer immediately. The sensors showed the Terran ship suddenly accelerating, their formation spreading into what looked like an attack pattern. But these weren't the careful, methodical movements of galactic patrol vessels. These ships moved like living things, predators stalking prey. The first exchange lasted exactly 47 seconds. When the sensors cleared, 4 of the 6 Krillian raiders were simply gone. Debris scattered in expanding clouds where moments before there had been heavily armed warships. The remaining 2 pirates were attempting to flee, their engines overloading as they desperately tried to escape. Impossible, breathed Navigator Vesh from her station. The Krillians had military-grade shields, reinforced hull plating. How could... Relentless and Devastator. Pursue and disable. Admiral Chen's voice cut through their shock. I want prisoners for interrogation. On the display, 2 of the smaller Terran ships peeled away from the formation, chasing the fleeing pirates like hunters pursuing wounded animals. The pirates never had a chance. Energy beams lanced out from the Terran vessels, not the familiar blue-white of standard plasma weaponry, but something that glowed with angry red fire. The beams struck the fleeing raiders, and their shields didn't just fail, they simply vanished as if they had never existed. The pirates' ships went dark and began drifting, their engines offline but their hulls intact. Clean capture, came a new voice. Prisoners secured. Ready for pickup. Admiral Chen's voice returned, but now it was addressing the gentle current. Captain Zixtar, we're moving to dock with your vessel. Our medical teams are prepared to assist with your casualties. Zixtar stared at the tactical display, trying to process what she had just witnessed. 12 ships had destroyed a pirate fleet that had terrorized this region of space for over 2 years. They had done it in less than a minute, with surgical precision and overwhelming force. Captain, Theis whispered, what kind of species are these Terrans? Through the main viewer, they could see the lead Terran ship approaching. The Indomitable was a sight to behold. Sleek and angular, covered in weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. But what struck Zixtar most was its purposeful design. This wasn't a ship built for exploration or research. This was a vessel designed for one thing only: war. As the massive ship drew alongside the damaged Gentle Current, Zixtar could see through the transparent aluminum viewports. Figures moved inside, bipedal, similar in basic structure to the Velnari, but somehow different. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of controlled power, and even from this distance, she could sense something predatory about them. "Captain," Admiral Chen's voice came over the communications again. "We're extending a docking tube. Permission to come aboard?" Zixtar looked around at her crew, scientists and researchers who had never seen violence before this day. Now they were about to meet the species that had just eliminated their tormentors with casual efficiency. "Permission granted," she managed to say. As the docking procedures began, Engineer Korth approached her with a troubled expression. "Captain, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from their weapons. The power output it's beyond anything in our databases. And their ship construction, those hull materials, the engine signatures, I don't think they're from any known sector of the galaxy." Zixtar nodded slowly, a growing realization settling over her. These Terrans weren't just unknown, they were from somewhere else entirely. Somewhere that had taught them to build ships with names like Devastator and Relentless. Somewhere that had created beings capable of destroying 6 warships in 47 seconds and calling it operational parameters. The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk that resonated through the ship's hull, and Zixtar heard the cycling of the airlock. In moments, she would meet these mysterious Terrans face to face. She only hoped she would survive the encounter. The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Captain Zixtar got her first look at the beings who had just saved her crew's lives. Admiral Sarah Chen stepped through the threshold, followed by 2 others in similar dark uniforms. Zixtar had to consciously prevent herself from taking a step backward. The Admiral was tall, much taller than any Velnari, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back in a severe style. But it was her eyes that captured Zixtar's attention. They were a strange blue-gray color, and they held an intensity that spoke of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions. When she moved, it was with the controlled grace of a predator, every motion purposeful and efficient. "Captain Zixtar," Admiral Chen said, extending a hand in what Zixtar assumed was a greeting gesture. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, Terran Federation Navy. These are Commander Jackson and Dr. Martinez." Zixtar carefully extended her own webbed hand, unsure of the protocol. The Admiral's grip was firm but not crushing, though Zixtar could feel the strength contained within those fingers. The skin was surprisingly warm and dry. "Admiral Chen," Zixtar managed, "on behalf of my crew, I cannot express our gratitude. You saved our lives." "Just doing our job," Admiral Chen replied, with what Zixtar was beginning to recognize as characteristic human directness. "Dr. Martinez is our chief medical officer. With your permission, she'd like to examine your wounded crew members." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, and Zixtar noticed she carried a medical kit that looked remarkably advanced. The woman's brown eyes were gentler than the Admiral's, but there was the same underlying intensity. "Captain, I've reviewed your species' basic physiology from our databases, but I'd feel more comfortable with a full examination before treating your people." "You have our physiological data in your databases?" Zixtar asked, surprised. Commander Jackson, a dark-skinned man with silver at his temples, smiled grimly. "We make it our business to know about our neighbors, Captain, even neighbors we haven't formally met yet." As Dr. Martinez moved to tend to the wounded, Admiral Chen gestured toward the ship's small meeting room. Captain, if you have a few minutes, I'd like to discuss the tactical situation. Those Krillian raiders weren't operating alone. Once seated around the conference table, Zixtar found herself studying her rescuers more closely. All three humans shared certain characteristics: an alertness that never seemed to fade, a way of positioning themselves that suggested they were always ready for action, and an underlying physical presence that was both fascinating and slightly unsettling. "Admiral," she began carefully, "forgive my directness, but where exactly are you from? I've never heard of the Terran Federation, and your ship capabilities are beyond anything in our databases." Admiral Chen exchanged glances with Commander Jackson before answering. "We're from a system you'd know as Sol 3, Earth. We've been spacefaring for about 200 of your standard years, but we've only recently expanded into this region of the galaxy." 200 years? Zixtar's gill slits fluttered with surprise. "But your technology, your ships, it would take millennia to develop such capabilities." Commander Jackson leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "Captain, may I ask about your world, your homeworld's characteristics?" The question seemed oddly personal, but Zixtar answered. "Velnara is a beautiful world, peaceful. Our oceans are calm, our weather patterns stable. We have no large predators, no natural disasters. It's a paradise, really." "Gravity?" Dr. Martinez asked, looking up from her medical readings. 0.7 standard, Zixtar replied. "Why do you ask?" The three humans looked at each other again, and Admiral Chen sighed. "Captain, Earth is what we call a death world. High gravity, violent weather, active tectonics, and every life form trying to kill every other life form. Humans evolved in constant competition with predators, disease, environmental disasters, and each other." Zixtar felt her breathing quicken. "You mean your entire species is from a hostile environment?" "Gets worse," Commander Jackson said with what might have been humor. "Our sun bombards us with radiation. Our planet's magnetic field creates electromagnetic storms, and we have these things called seasons, where the temperature and weather patterns change dramatically 4 times every orbital cycle." Dr. Martinez returned to the table, her expression troubled. "Captain, I've stabilized your crew, but I need to ask, have you ever encountered serious violence before today?" "Violence?" Zixtar was confused by the question. "You mean like the pirate attack?" "No, never. The Velnari are a peaceful species. We've had no wars for over 3,000 years. The humans exchanged those looks again, and Zixtar was beginning to understand that this was how they communicated complex ideas without words. "Captain," Admiral Chen said gently, "what I'm about to tell you might be difficult to process. Humans have been fighting continuously for our entire evolutionary history. We've had wars, conflicts, and competition for resources since before we developed written language. When we finally achieved interstellar flight, we discovered that we're apparently unusual in this regard." "Unusual how?" Zixtar asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. Commander Jackson activated a holographic display showing various species' homeworlds. "Most sentient species in the galaxy evolved on what we call garden worlds, stable, peaceful environments like yours. They developed intelligence as a survival strategy, but not the kind of competitive, aggressive intelligence that humans possess." The display showed Earth, and Zixtar gasped. Massive storm systems swirled across the continents, lightning flickered in towering cloud formations, and she could see the active glow of volcanic activity even from space. "This is your home world?" she whispered. "Home, sweet home," Dr. Martinez said dryly. "Humans didn't just develop intelligence, we developed pack-hunting strategies, tactical thinking, and the ability to coordinate complex military operations. We're persistence predators, Captain. When we decide something needs to be done, we don't give up." Admiral Chen continued the explanation. When we first made contact with other species, we were shocked to discover that most galactic conflicts are resolved through negotiation, economic pressure, or, at most, limited policing actions by organizations like your Galactic Patrol. But the Krillian pirates, Zixtar protested. They're known for their brutality. By galactic standards, yes, Commander Jackson agreed. By human standards, they're undisciplined thugs with poor tactical coordination and outdated equipment. Zixtar tried to process this information. Are you saying that humans are warriors? We're saying that every human is a warrior, Admiral Chen corrected. We had to be to survive on Earth. Our entire society, our technology, our way of thinking, it's all shaped by millions of years of evolutionary pressure that demanded we become the ultimate survival specialists. Dr. Martinez leaned back in her chair. Captain, humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We've been preparing for war for our entire existence. When we finally achieved peace on our own world, we brought those preparations with us to the stars. Your ship names, Zixtar said suddenly, understanding dawning. Indomitable, Devastator, Relentless. These aren't just designations. They're promises. Exactly, Admiral Chen smiled grimly. Human ship names traditionally reflect our hopes, our values, or our intentions. We name our ships after concepts like determination, courage, and yes, sometimes destruction. Commander Jackson activated another display showing the human fleet that had rescued them. The TFN operates under what we call overwhelming deterrence. We don't want to fight, Captain. War is costly, both in resources and lives. But if forced to fight, we end conflicts as quickly and decisively as possible. 47 seconds. Zixtar murmured, remembering the destruction of the pirate fleet. Standard engagement time for that class of threat, Admiral Chen confirmed. Our tactical doctrine emphasizes rapid deployment of superior firepower to minimize overall casualties and prevent conflicts from escalating. Dr. Martinez looked troubled. Captain, I have to ask, when you sent out your distress call, what were you expecting? Galactic Patrol, eventually, Zixtar admitted. They would have negotiated with the pirates, possibly offered them compensation to leave us alone. If that failed, they might have engaged in limited combat to drive them away. And if the pirates refused to negotiate? Commander Jackson asked. Zixtar's gill slits fluttered with distress. Then my crew and I would have died. Pirates like the Krillians don't typically take prisoners. The humans were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke, her voice softer than before. Captain, that's not acceptable to us. Humans have a very simple philosophy about predators who target civilians. They need to be stopped, permanently. But the galaxy has laws, Zixtar protested. Rules of engagement, protocols for dealing with criminal activity. And we'll follow them. When dealing with civilized opponents, Admiral Chen assured her. But what we encountered here wasn't civilization. It was predation, and humans have been dealing with predators for a very long time. Dr. Martinez stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been 6 pirate ships. Captain, I need you to understand something important. Humans didn't come here looking for a fight. We're explorers, diplomats, traders, just like most species. But we're also survivors, and survivors recognize threats. The Krillian pirates have been operating in this sector for years, Commander Jackson added, consulting his tablet. According to our intelligence, they've attacked over 40 civilian vessels, with a 90% fatality rate among their victims. Your Galactic Patrol has been negotiating with them for 2 years. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Captain, in human terms, that's not law enforcement. That's enabling predation. Zixtar felt overwhelmed by the implications. You're saying that humans would have stopped them years ago? We're saying that pirates like this wouldn't exist in human space, Admiral Chen replied. Not for long. The conference room fell silent as Zixtar tried to process this revelation. These beings who had saved her crew weren't just technologically advanced. They represented a completely different approach to survival, one shaped by eons of conflict and competition. "Admiral," she said finally, "what happens now? With the pirates, I mean." "The survivors will be interrogated to determine the location of their base of operations," Admiral Chen explained. "Then we'll discuss the situation with local authorities and see what can be done about the larger problem." "And if the local authorities prefer negotiation?" Admiral Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "Captain, one of the advantages of being new to the neighborhood is that we're not bound by existing treaties or diplomatic precedents. We have our own methods for dealing with predators." As if summoned by their conversation, Communications Officer Theis's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from multiple sources. Word of the engagement is spreading, and we're getting requests for information about our rescuers." Admiral Chen stood, her expression businesslike once again. "It seems our introduction to local politics is about to begin. Captain, with your permission, I'd like to invite you and your senior staff aboard the Indomitable for a full briefing. I think there are some things about human capabilities that the local government should understand." As they prepared to transfer to the human ship, Zixtar couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The galaxy had just met its first apex predator species, and she had a front-row seat to whatever came next. The bridge of the TFN Indomitable was unlike anything Captain Zixtar had ever experienced. The command center hummed with controlled energy, and every surface displayed tactical information with crystalline clarity. Human crew members moved with the same purposeful efficiency she had observed in Admiral Chen. Their actions coordinated like parts of a single organism. "Impressive," she murmured to Commander Jackson, who was serving as her guide. "Standard heavy cruiser configuration," he replied casually. "We'll be showing you one of our dreadnoughts next week if you're interested." Zixtar's compound eyes widened. If this was their standard cruiser, what would their largest warships be like? Admiral Chen stood at the Central Command Station, studying a three-dimensional tactical display that showed the entire sector. Red markers indicated known pirate activity, while blue markers showed shipping lanes and civilian settlements. The pattern was sobering. The pirates had been systematically targeting the most vulnerable vessels, and their area of operations was expanding. "Captain Zixtar," Admiral Chen called. "I'd like you to see this." Zixtar approached the display, followed by her senior staff. Dr. Martinez was there as well, along with several other human officers she hadn't met. "This is Commander Sarah Kim, our intelligence officer," Admiral Chen introduced. "Commander, please brief our guests on what we've learned from the interrogations." Commander Kim was a compact woman with sharp features and the same alert expression Zixtar was learning to associate with humans. "Captain, the Krillian pirates we captured have provided detailed information about their operations. They're part of a larger organization called the Crimson Fang Syndicate, operating from a hidden base in the Morthak asteroid field." The display zoomed in to show a dense cluster of asteroids on the sector's edge. "The base is heavily fortified and houses approximately 300 pirates operating 24 ships of various classes. More importantly, they have contacts within several planetary governments and have been paying bribes to ensure galactic patrol response times remain slow." Zixtar felt sick. Corruption within the government systems? Deep corruption, Admiral Chen confirmed. The pirates weren't just lucky or clever, they had inside information about patrol schedules, shipping manifests, and response protocols. Engineer Korth, who had been studying the technical displays with fascination, looked up from a weapon schematic. "Admiral, these energy readings from your ships, how is such power output possible?" Dr. Martinez answered, "It's a matter of engineering philosophy, Commander. Most galactic species develop technology to make their lives easier and safer. Humans develop technology to make ourselves more effective predators. Our weapon systems are based on principles we developed for warfare on Earth, explained another officer, a severe-looking man introduced as Captain Torres. Kinetic energy weapons, directed energy systems, and fusion warheads. We didn't have the luxury of assuming our enemies would fight fair or show mercy. Admiral Chen manipulated the display, showing the human fleet's current position. Captain Zixtar, we've received authorization from Earth Command to deal with the pirate threat in this sector. I wanted to show you our operational plan before we implement it. The display showed multiple approach vectors converging on the Morthak asteroid field. Zixtar could see that the human fleet had been reinforced. There were now over 30 ships in various formations. "You're going to attack the pirate base," she said. It wasn't a question. "We're going to eliminate it," Admiral Chen corrected. "There's a difference. An attack implies the enemy might survive the encounter." Commander Jackson highlighted different sections of the asteroid field. "Our scouts have identified the base's defensive systems, ship berths, and command structures. The operation will be conducted in 3 phases: electronic warfare to disable their communications and sensors, precision strikes on their military assets, and finally, capture of personnel for prosecution." "What about civilians?" Zixtar asked. "Surely not everyone in the base is a pirate." Dr. Martinez consulted her tablet. "According to our intelligence, the base houses approximately 50 non-combatants, maintenance staff, medical personnel, and some family members. They'll be extracted safely before combat operations begin." "How?" Engineer Korth asked, leaning forward with interest. Captain Torres smiled grimly. "Special operations teams. Humans have been conducting covert rescue missions for centuries. We're very good at getting people out of dangerous situations." Admiral Chen activated a communication link. "Commander Bradley, status report on Phoenix team." A voice crackled over the speakers with confidence and precision. "Admiral, Phoenix team is in position. We have eyes on the civilian quarters. Extraction can begin on your mark." "Phoenix team?" Zixtar inquired. "Special Forces," Admiral Chen explained. "They infiltrated the asteroid base 6 hours ago. The pirates never knew they were there." Zixtar stared at the display in amazement. While she and her crew had been aboard the Indomitable learning about human capabilities, the humans had already deployed covert operatives to the pirate stronghold, mapped their defenses, and prepared for a complete elimination of the threat. "Admiral," she began slowly, "how did your people infiltrate a fortified pirate base without being detected?" Commander Kim answered, "Stealth technology, advanced combat training, and experience with asymmetric warfare. Captain, humans spent thousands of years fighting other humans, beings just as intelligent, adaptable, and dangerous as ourselves. Pirates who evolved on garden worlds aren't operating at the same level of tactical sophistication." "Phoenix team, commence civilian extraction," Admiral Chen ordered. Over the next hour, Zixtar watched in fascination as the human Special Forces team evacuated 50 non-combatants from the pirate base without raising a single alarm. The operations were conducted with surgical precision, using advanced technology she couldn't begin to understand. "Extraction complete," Commander Bradley reported. "All civilians are secured. Ready for Phase 2. Admiral Chen turned to Zixtar. "Captain, I'm required to offer you the opportunity to witness this operation from a safe distance or to return to your ship if you prefer." Zixtar looked at her crew. They were all staring at the tactical displays with mixtures of awe and apprehension. "We'll stay," she decided. "We need to understand what's happening here." "Very well. All ships, commence electronic warfare operations." On the display, Zixtar watched as invisible electromagnetic pulses reached out from the human fleet toward the asteroid base. Within minutes, every pirate communication system, sensor array, and defensive computer went dark. "They're blind and deaf," Captain Torres observed with satisfaction. Phase 3, precision strikes. What followed was unlike anything in Zixtar's experience. The human fleet moved like a living organism, each ship taking precise positions around the asteroid field. When they opened fire, it wasn't the chaotic energy exchange she had expected from military encounters. Instead, each shot was calculated, targeted, and devastating. Weapon emplacements simply vanished. Pirate ships attempting to launch were disabled with surgical accuracy. The humans weren't fighting a battle. They were conducting an execution. Resistance neutralized, came the report. Base secure, beginning evidence collection and prisoner processing. In less than 20 minutes, a pirate stronghold that had terrorized the sector for years had been completely eliminated. The pirates' ships were disabled but intact, their personnel captured alive, and their base secured for investigation. My God, whispered Navigator Vesh. You didn't just defeat them. You dismantled them. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Captain, piracy exists because governments allow it to exist. When predators know they'll face swift, overwhelming retaliation, they stop being predators. Communications Officer Theiss looked up from her console with confusion. Admiral, we're receiving urgent transmissions from multiple planetary governments. They're demanding explanations for your military action. Expected, Admiral Chen replied calmly. Commander Kim, please transmit our evidence files to all planetary authorities. Make sure they understand that we've uncovered extensive corruption in their law enforcement systems. Over the next several hours, Zixtar watched as the political situation in the sector transformed completely. The evidence collected from the pirate base revealed a network of corruption that reached into multiple planetary governments. Officials who had been taking bribes to slow galactic patrol responses suddenly found themselves facing criminal charges. More importantly, word of the human military intervention spread throughout the region. Captain Torres showed her the communication intercepts. Criminal organizations throughout the sector were abandoning their operations and fleeing to other regions. The mere presence of humans had apparently redefined the risk-reward calculations of every predator in local space. I don't understand, Zixtar admitted. Why are they so afraid? You only destroyed one pirate base. Dr. Martinez brought up a tactical analysis on the display. Captain, humans have a concept called escalation dominance. When we respond to a threat, we respond with enough force to ensure that threat never resurfaces. The pirates know that if they continue operating in human space, we won't just capture them or negotiate with them, Admiral Chen explained. We'll hunt them down systematically until their organizations cease to exist. Commander Jackson added, It's a simple calculation, Captain. Humans have patience, resources, and the technological capability to track down every single member of a criminal organization. Pirates prefer easy targets, not enemies who will pursue them across the galaxy. 2 days later, as the Gentle Current prepared to depart for Velnara, Admiral Chen met with Zixtar one final time in the human ship's observation lounge. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the human fleet maintaining its patrol formation. Captain, I want you to understand something important, Admiral Chen said. Humans didn't come to this region looking for conquest or control. We're explorers and traders, just like most species. But we won't tolerate predation against civilians. What happens now? Zixtar asked. Will your fleet remain in this sector? A small patrol group will maintain a presence here while local law enforcement rebuilds itself without corruption, Admiral Chen replied. But the real change isn't our ships, Captain. It's the knowledge that humanity exists. Zixtar considered this. You mean other predator species will know that there's a civilization that fights back? More than that, Admiral Chen smiled. They'll know there's a civilization that doesn't just fight back. We hunt. Predators throughout the galaxy are going to have to consider the possibility that their actions might attract human attention. And if they attract that attention? Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Captain, Humans have been the apex predator on our world for 200,000 years. We didn't lose that instinct when we reached the stars. We just gained better tools. As the gentle current began its journey home, Zixtar stood on her bridge, watching the human fleet dwindle in the distance. Her crew was quiet, processing everything they had witnessed. "Captain," Engineer Korth said finally, "I've been thinking about what Admiral Chen said, about humans being apex predators." "Yes? Do you think the galaxy is ready for that? For a species that doesn't negotiate with threats?" Zixtar considered the question carefully. Around them, space seemed more peaceful than it had in years. Shipping lanes that had been dangerous for decades were now safe. Criminal organizations were fleeing rather than risk human attention. For the first time in memory, civilian vessels could travel without fear. "I think, Commander Korth," she said finally, "that the galaxy has been waiting for apex predators for a very long time. It just didn't know it." Behind them, almost too distant to see, the human fleet continued its patrol. Somewhere in the galaxy, predators were learning a new equation. The cost of civilian predation now included the possibility of human response. And humans, as Admiral Chen had explained, didn't negotiate with predators. They hunted them.